Marcus Iron Thompson was the president of the Renegade Riders Motorcycle Club, one of the most feared biker gangs in the country. At 53 years old, Marcus had built an empire through intimidation, violence, and ruthlessness. He had dozens of motorcycles, hundreds of followers, and control over several neighborhoods through drug distribution, illegal gambling, and protection rackets. But Marcus had one weakness. One thing that mattered more to him than his entire empire. His daughter, Emily. Emily was 22 years old, beautiful, intelligent, and completely innocent of the criminal world her father inhabited. Marcus had raised her after his wife died when Emily was just 5 years old. He'd made a decision back then. No matter what he had to do, no matter how deep into the criminal underworld he sank, his daughter would be protected. His daughter would be clean. Emily went to college. Emily didn't know the details of her father's business. Emily had no idea that her father was one of the most dangerous men in the city. As far as she knew, her father worked in import and export. She had a normal life, normal friends, and normal dreams. Everything changed on a Tuesday evening when Emily didn't come home. Marcus had tried calling her hundreds of times. He'd sent text messages. He'd called her friends. Nobody knew where she was. Finally, at 11 p.m., he received a text message from an unknown number. "We have Emily. Drug money you took from us. She's our guarantee you'll pay it back. $500,000 cash. Tomorrow at midnight. Come alone or she dies." Marcus felt his entire world collapse. The man who'd spent decades controlling every situation, who'd intimidated countless people, who'd ordered men killed without blinking. That man was now terrified. Not for himself. For his daughter. He had no idea who had taken Emily. He had no idea who he was dealing with. But what he would discover would set him on a path that would transform him from a ruthless criminal into a father fighting for redemption. Marcus Thompson hadn't always been a drug dealer and biker gang president. 20 years ago, he'd been someone completely different. Marcus had been a regular working man. He'd worked at a steel factory, earning decent money, trying to raise his young daughter alone after his wife died of cancer. He'd loved his wife desperately, and losing her had destroyed him. For months after her death, Marcus had barely functioned. He'd gone through the motions of work and parenting, but inside he was empty. One day, a man had approached him at a bar. The man had offered him a way to make real money. The man had explained that he could earn in one day what he made in a month at the factory. All he had to do was distribute some product, and the money would follow. Marcus had been desperate. He'd wanted to give Emily everything. He'd wanted to make sure she never felt the pain he was feeling. He'd wanted to fill the empty house with love and attention and things that would make her smile. So he'd said yes. That one decision had changed everything. Within a year, Marcus had been making more money than he'd ever dreamed of. He'd left the factory job. He'd started selling drugs. He'd gotten in deeper and deeper with the criminal underworld. He'd met other dealers, other gang members, other criminals. And eventually, he'd become one of the most powerful men in that world. The Renegade Riders had recruited him. They'd recognized his intelligence and his ruthlessness. They'd promoted him through their ranks until he became president. By the time Emily was a teenager, Marcus was running a major drug distribution network in the city. But through it all, Marcus had maintained his rule. Emily would be protected. Emily would be clean. She would have no idea what her father did. Marcus had sent Emily to private schools, away from the dangerous neighborhoods where his business operated. He'd hired tutors and security guards to protect her, though Emily thought the security was just because her father was overprotective. He'd paid for her college education at a prestigious university out of state. He'd made sure that every aspect of her life was separate from his criminal enterprise. Emily was his redemption. Emily was the proof that Marcus Thompson was still a good man, even though he'd done terrible things. Emily was his reason for living. So when she disappeared, it felt like everything had meaning had been ripped away from him. Marcus called an emergency meeting of the Renegade Riders. He gathered his most trusted lieutenants in the back room of a club they owned. There were about 20 men sitting around a table, all waiting to hear what the boss had to say. "Someone took my daughter," Marcus said, and his voice was deadly calm. That calm was more terrifying than any angry outburst. "Someone thinks they can leverage her against me. Someone thinks they can use her as a bargaining chip." He looked around the room at each man. "I want to know who did this," he continued. "I want to know every detail. I want to know where they took her, who they are, what they want. And I want this information in the next 6 hours, or every single one of you is going to wish you'd never been born." The men started making phone calls, sending messages, and using the extensive network of informants and dealers they controlled. Within 3 hours, they had information. The person who'd taken Emily was a relatively new drug dealer named Victor Ramos. Victor was young, only 28 years old, but he was ambitious and dangerous. He'd been trying to move into the Renegade Riders' territory, and he'd been making moves that directly threatened Marcus's business. A month ago, Marcus's crew had intercepted one of Victor's drug shipments. It was worth about $500,000. Marcus had taken the drugs and the money to teach Victor a lesson, to show him that he couldn't compete with the Renegade Riders. Marcus had expected Victor to learn his place or leave the city. Instead, Victor had kidnapped Emily. One of Marcus's informants reported that Emily was being held in a warehouse on the east side of the city. She was alive, but she was being held in a locked room. Victor was demanding the $500,000 that Marcus had taken from him, plus another $500,000 as interest. He wanted a total of $1 million, or Emily would be killed. Marcus made a decision in that moment that would change the course of everything. He called his lieutenant, a man named David, and he gave him instructions. David was to prepare the money. David was also to prepare a police tip about Victor's operation. The tip would include information about Victor's drug manufacturing facility, his distribution network, and details about his criminal organization. Then Marcus did something he'd never done before. He called a priest. Father Michael was a priest at St. Catherine's Church, a small Catholic church in a working-class neighborhood. He'd grown up in the same neighborhood as Marcus, and they'd been friends in high school. When Marcus's wife had died, Father Michael had been there. When Emily was born, Father Michael had baptized her. Over the years, Father Michael had watched Marcus slide deeper into crime. They'd remained in contact, but Father Michael had also maintained a respectful distance. He didn't condone Marcus's lifestyle, but he also never stopped believing that Marcus could change. When Marcus called him that evening and explained the situation, Father Michael heard something in Marcus's voice that he'd never heard before. He heard genuine desperation. He heard a man at a crossroads. He heard a man who was finally questioning the choices he'd made. "I need you to do something for me," Marcus said. "I need you to go to Emily. I need you to tell her who I really am. I need you to tell her what I've done with my life. I need her to know that none of this is her fault, that I've spent 20 years protecting her from a world I created." "Why are you telling me this now?" Father Michael asked gently. "Because," Marcus said, "I'm going to save my daughter. But I'm not going to do it the way I've always done things. I'm not going to kill anyone. I'm not going to hurt anyone. I'm going to turn myself in. I'm going to face justice. And I need Emily to know that her father is finally trying to become a good man." Father Michael agreed to help. He used the contact information Marcus provided to locate where Emily was being held. He contacted the police and gave them the location. Then he went to the warehouse, following behind the police. When the police arrived at the warehouse, they found Emily locked in a room. She was terrified, crying, confused about what had happened and why. Victor Ramos was arrested trying to flee out the back of the building. Father Michael reached Emily just as she was being released by the police. He held her, let her cry on his shoulder, and then he took her to a safe location. "Your father sent me to get you," Father Michael said gently. "And he sent me to tell you something very important." Emily looked at Father Michael with fear and confusion in her eyes. "What? What's going on? Why was I kidnapped? Who's Victor Ramos? Why did this happen?" Father Michael sat Emily down in the safe house and began to tell her the truth about her father. He told her about the drug dealing, the motorcycle gang, the criminal enterprise. He told her about the money and the violence and the illegal activities that had defined Marcus's life for the past 20 years. Emily listened in shock, then horror, then profound sadness. Tears streamed down her face as she realized that everything she'd believed about her father was a lie. "Why?" she asked. "Why did he do all of this?" "Because he loved you," Father Michael said simply. "He wanted to give you everything. He made terrible choices, but his motivation was love. If he loved me, he wouldn't have lied to me for my entire life," Emily said bitterly. "If he loved me, he wouldn't have gotten involved in all of this in the first place." Father Michael didn't defend Marcus. He understood Emily's anger and betrayal. But he also understood something about Marcus's journey that Emily didn't yet understand. Meanwhile, Marcus was sitting in a police station, having turned himself in just as he'd promised. He'd confessed to drug distribution, money laundering, and dozens of other crimes. He'd provided information about his organization, about other gang members, about the criminal network he'd built. Detective Sarah Chun was the investigator assigned to his case. She was a smart, tough cop who'd been trying to bring down the renegade riders for years. She was shocked when Marcus walked into the station and confessed to everything. "Why are you doing this?" Detective Chun asked, studying Marcus carefully. "A man in your position doesn't just surrender unless there's something else going on." "My daughter," Marcus said simply. "My daughter was kidnapped because of the life I've been living. I finally understood that I've been lying to myself. I told myself I was protecting her, but really I was putting her in danger. The only way to truly protect her is to remove myself from that world." Detective Chun spent hours interviewing Marcus. As she listened to his story, something unexpected happened. She started to see Marcus differently. She saw not just a criminal, but a man who'd made terrible choices, but was now trying to do the right thing. "What about your crew?" Detective Chun asked. "What about the renegade riders? Are they going to come after you for cooperating with us?" "Probably," Marcus said. "But that's not my concern anymore. My concern is doing the right thing for once in my life." Over the next several weeks, Marcus's confession led to the dismantling of a significant portion of the drug trade in the city. Over 50 arrests were made. Drug manufacturing facilities were shut down. Criminal networks were disrupted. Detective Chun called it one of the biggest wins of her career, and it was all because Marcus Thompson had decided to cooperate. But more importantly, Marcus's confession allowed him to have a conversation with Emily that he'd been dreading his entire life. Emily didn't visit her father in jail for the first 2 months after his arrest. She was too angry, too hurt, too confused. She struggled with the revelation that her entire life had been built on a foundation of lies. But gradually, as time passed, Emily started to understand something. She started to understand that her father had made terrible choices, yes. But his motivation had always been love. He'd been trying to provide for her in the only way he knew how. He'd made a mistake by getting involved in crime, and then he'd compounded that mistake by lying to her about it. Yet he'd also finally done the right thing. He'd turned himself in. He'd confessed. He'd exposed his own organization to save her. 3 months after his arrest, Emily went to visit her father in prison. Marcus was led into the visitation room wearing an orange jumpsuit. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by the institutional clothing and the reality of his situation. When he saw Emily, tears immediately came to his eyes. "Hi, Dad," Emily said, and her voice was soft but not entirely warm. "Hi, sweetheart," Marcus said, and he tried to smile but couldn't quite manage it. They sat across from each other, separated by a physical barrier, separated by years of lies. "I don't know how to feel," Emily said. "I'm angry at you. I'm disappointed in you. I'm confused about who you actually are. But I'm also grateful that you turned yourself in. I'm grateful that you chose to do the right thing." Marcus nodded, listening carefully. "I want you to understand something," Emily continued. "What you did for the first 22 years of my life, trying to protect me, trying to give me everything, I do appreciate that. But you did it wrong. You did it by creating a false world, by lying to me, by building everything on secrets and crime." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I want to know the real you," Emily said. "I want to understand who you are when you're not trying to be the tough biker gang president or the devoted father who lies to protect his daughter. Who is Marcus Thompson really?" Marcus took a deep breath. For years, he'd hidden from this question. For years, he'd built false identities, the criminal, the father, the boss. But now, sitting in a prison cell, facing consequences for his actions, Marcus had to finally answer that question honestly. "I'm a man who made terrible mistakes," Marcus said slowly. "I'm a man who lost his way after his wife died. I'm a man who thought that money and power and control could fill the empty places inside me. And I'm a man who finally realized that he was wrong." He looked at Emily directly. "I'm also your father," he continued. "And even though I did it all wrong, even though I lied and built a false world, that part was real. My love for you is real. My desire to protect you is real. Those feelings were the only true things in my life for 20 years. Emily listened, and slowly, the anger in her face softened. She reached across the table and took her father's hand. "I'm going to forgive you," she said. "Not because what you did was okay. It wasn't. But because I can see that you're trying to change. I can see that you're taking responsibility. And I can see that you love me." She squeezed his hand. And I need you to do something for me, Emily continued. I need you to use this time in prison to really think about who you want to become. When you get out, I want my father to be a man I can be proud of. I want him to be honest, kind, and good. Can you do that? Yes, Marcus said without hesitation. I can do that. I will do that. Over the next several years, Marcus served his prison sentence. He spent his time in prison wisely. He got his GED. He took college courses through a prison education program. He participated in therapy and addiction counseling, addressing the trauma and pain that had driven him to crime in the first place. He worked as a counselor for other inmates, helping them understand how they could change their lives. He also corresponded with Emily regularly. They wrote letters to each other, long, honest letters where Marcus explained his life and his choices, and Emily shared her own journey of healing and forgiveness. Slowly, through these letters, Emily came to know her father as a real person, not as either the criminal or the idealized father she'd once believed him to be. Emily attended a college where she studied criminal justice and social work. She became interested in helping people who were trapped in cycles of crime and poverty. She worked with nonprofit organizations that helped formerly incarcerated people reintegrate into society. And in many ways, her inspiration for this work came from her father's transformation. 7 years after his arrest, Marcus Thompson was released from prison. He was 60 years old now. He'd spent 7 years behind bars. He had a criminal record that would follow him for the rest of his life. Most employers wouldn't hire him. Most landlords wouldn't rent to him. Most people wouldn't trust him. He was starting over with nothing as a convicted felon. But he had something else. He had his daughter's love and respect. Emily picked him up from the prison on the day of his release. When she saw him walk out the gates wearing civilian clothes for the first time in 7 years, she ran to him and hugged him tightly. "Welcome home, Dad," she said. Marcus had arranged a job through a nonprofit organization that hired formerly incarcerated individuals. He worked in construction, rebuilding and renovating buildings. It was hard physical work, but it was honest work. He earned enough to rent a small apartment. But more importantly, Marcus started working with Emily at the nonprofit organization, where she now worked as a counselor. Together, they helped men and women who were struggling with addiction, poverty, and crime. Many of them facing the same crossroads that Marcus had faced years ago. Marcus would sit with these people and share his story. He would tell them about the choices he'd made, the consequences he'd faced, and the redemption he'd found through taking responsibility. He would tell them that it's never too late to change. He would tell them that being a victim of circumstance doesn't mean you have to stay a victim. You have the power to choose differently. One day, a young man named Danny came to the organization. Danny was 23 years old and had just been released from prison after serving 3 years for drug dealing. He had nowhere to go, nobody who believed in him, and very little hope for his future. Marcus took Danny under his wing. He got him a job in construction. He helped him find housing. He introduced him to the nonprofit support programs. And he shared his story with Danny. "I was where you are," Marcus told Danny. "I had nothing. I had a record. Nobody wanted to hire me. Nobody believed in me. But I decided that I wasn't going to let my past define my future. I decided to become a different person. It wasn't easy, but it was possible." Danny listened, and something in Marcus's words resonated with him. Danny started to believe that he could change too. He worked hard at his job. He attended support group meetings. He started rebuilding relationships with his family. And he started working with other young people who'd been involved in crime, sharing his own journey of transformation. A year after Danny started working with Marcus, Danny approached him at the nonprofit. "Thank you," Danny said simply. "Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. You changed my life." Marcus felt tears come to his eyes. "You changed your own life," he replied. "I just showed you that it was possible." But this was the pattern that emerged, Marcus and Emily working together, helping people transform their lives, creating a ripple effect of positive change in the community. Each person they helped would eventually help someone else. The cycle of crime and violence was being replaced with a cycle of redemption and hope. One evening, Marcus sat in Emily's apartment, and she was making dinner for him. It was a simple, ordinary moment, a father and daughter cooking together. But for Marcus, it was everything. "Do you remember what you asked me all those years ago in prison?" Emily asked as she chopped vegetables. "What was that?" Marcus asked. "You asked me if I could forgive you," Emily replied. "And you asked me what I needed from you." "I remember," Marcus said. "I need you to know that I'm proud of you," Emily said. "Not proud of who you were as a drug dealer and criminal, but proud of who you've become. Proud of the work you're doing. Proud that you're using your experience to help other people avoid the same mistakes." She set down her knife and looked at her father. "You once told me that you spent 20 years protecting me from a world you created," Emily said. "Well, now you're spending your life creating a better world for people who are trapped in the same world you created. That matters. That makes a difference." Marcus hugged his daughter tightly. "Your mother would be proud of both of us," he said. And he meant it. His wife, Emily's mother, had died before all of this happened. She never knew about the crimes Marcus committed or the lies he told. But if she could see them now, her husband and daughter working together to help people transform their lives, she would definitely be proud. Marcus understood something now that he hadn't understood for most of his life. He understood that redemption wasn't about erasing your past. It was about learning from your past and using that learning to become someone better. It was about taking the pain and mistakes and transforming them into wisdom that could help other people. He also understood that love wasn't about controlling someone or protecting them from reality. Love was about being honest, about allowing people to know the real you, about admitting your mistakes and working to make them right. The biggest lesson Marcus learned was about fatherhood itself. He'd thought that being a good father meant providing money and protection and keeping his daughter away from danger. But real fatherhood meant being honest. It meant allowing your child to know you as a real person with flaws and mistakes. It meant modeling integrity and growth. Years later, when Marcus was in his 70s and Emily was in her 50s, they sat together and reflected on the journey they'd taken. "What would you tell someone who's in the situation you were in?" Emily asked. "Someone who's trapped in a criminal lifestyle and doesn't know how to get out." "I would tell them that the cycle can be broken," Marcus said. "I would tell them that it's never too late to choose differently. I would tell them that the consequences are real. I spent 7 years in prison, and I'll never fully escape the label of criminal. But I would also tell them that redemption is real too, and that redemption is worth the cost." He paused, thinking about his journey. "I would also tell them not to make the same mistake I made," Marcus continued. "I lied to my daughter to protect her, but all I really did was delay the truth. I would tell them to be honest with the people they love. I would tell them that real relationships are built on truth, not on lies and protection." Emily squeezed her father's hand, and they sat together in comfortable silence. Two people who'd been through hell and emerged on the other side not unscathed, but transformed. Not erased of their mistakes, but defined by their determination to be better. ## direct hit final call to action. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the power of redemption and forgiveness and what it means to truly change your life, then I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone. It could be someone who's struggling with criminal choices, someone who's trying to forgive themselves or someone else, or someone who needs to be reminded that it's never too late to become a better person. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss these stories about transformation, redemption, and the power of family love. Because here's the truth. There are people right now who are trapped in cycles of crime and poverty. They believe they can't change. They believe their past mistakes define their entire future. They believe that redemption is impossible for them. And that belief becomes self-fulfilling. They give up and continue down the same path because they can't imagine any other possibility. But this story shows us that change is possible. It's not easy, and it comes with real consequences. Marcus spent 7 years in prison. He carries a criminal record for the rest of his life. He lost decades of his life to a lifestyle he now regrets. But he also found redemption. He also found a way to transform his pain into purpose. If you're struggling with addiction or crime or destructive choices, please know that you can change. It will be difficult. It will require you to face the consequences of your actions. It will require you to humble yourself and ask for help. But it is possible. And if you're someone who loves a person who's trapped in crime or addiction, please know that you don't have to enable their choices. You can love someone while maintaining healthy boundaries. You can support someone while requiring them to take responsibility for their actions. And you can believe in someone's capacity to change while also protecting yourself. Leave a comment below and tell us. Have you ever had to forgive someone who hurt you? Have you ever experienced redemption from your own mistakes? Have you ever seen someone transform their life? Share your story in the comments. Your experience might inspire someone else to believe that change is possible. Also, if you or someone you know is struggling with addiction or involvement in crime, please reach out to organizations that can help. There are people and resources available specifically designed to help people break these cycles. You don't have to do it alone. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We release new stories every single week about real people who found redemption, who transformed their lives, and who used their pain to help other people. We'll see you in the next video. Stay strong, believe in redemption, and remember, you are not defined by your worst moment. You are defined by what you choose to do after that moment. Thank you so much for watching.